We'll now have a talk by Henry Bhaskar. So Bhaskar is a data designer and is the CEO of Kill Bill, a writing platform for docs, web, and social. In his private capacity, he's a writer, designer, filmmaker, technical photographer, archivist, and an independent researcher of the Indus civilization. He had assisted Professor Iravatham Mahadevan for about a dozen years, and he has a very unique perspective on the artifacts of the Indus civilization from a communication design perspective. So, without further ado, let me invite Bhaskar to give us talk.
Sinan. Good afternoon. So the topic is communication design in Indus civilization. Design, the word is problematic. It's very loaded. If you use the word design, you have to be able to show intent. Otherwise, you can only say it's art and it's spontaneous expression. But the whole point of the Indus communication system is that it is actually by design, that there is intent, that you can actually get to a kind of a schema, that you can actually formulaically express it. And there are clear patterns and order and sequencing formulae that dictate how a message gets onto a seal and a seal impression and so on. That's really, and therefore it's also a total recall system. If you have to establish a communication system, you also have to establish side by side a mnemonic and a recall system for people to easily remember the constituent elements of the communication system. So that's roughly what the whole topic is about. This talk, as is every one of mine, is dedicated to Padma Shri Iravatham Mahadevan, who I worked with, who showed me the way really. One request, please always, the slide numbers are printed, and any question please cite the slide number, because all of them relate to the visual and mere descriptions will not do. Yeah. Thank you. Some definitions up front. We'll be very often encountering these terms. A seal is basically like a rubber stamp, a modern rubber stamp. That's the easiest way to understand it. So a modern rubber stamp is also always carved in mirror image, and then you now stamp it on paper, except at that time there was no paper, and the seal was not made of rubber, it was made of steatite stone. It was carved in mirror image, but at the same time, and then it was used to stamp any pliable medium such as clay, whatever was available to them. And so that is the second category, which is impression. But impression has a lot of plurality, in the sense, especially early archaeologists also refer to tablets as impressions. But those impressions are not made from stamp seals, they are made from mold seals. I'll show you one example of that. For instance, this is a tablet of 6 sides, 2 minor sides, 4 major sides, and the 4 major sides carry visual information and textual information, and it is made from a mold seal and not from a stamp seal. So this is also, so I use the term, hyphenated term, seal impression to encompass all of these. There is a seal, a stamps, which is a sealing, which is what archaeology calls it, and then there are these mold seal impressions, all of them together, seal impressions. But there is a proper academic word for it. These are called sigillograms, and the area of this study is called sphagistics, Greek, S-P-H-R-A, sphagistics. Yeah. So essentially what we are looking at is not all aspects of the Indus Valley civilization at the moment. We are looking at only the sigillographic output and what the sigillographic output can tell us, right? That's done. Okay, before we get ahead, a little bit of a mnemonic scheme that I use myself to get the audience familiar with all types of imagery that's available there. It's very simple. You see a single horn, it's unicorn. You see 2 horns bent forward, it's an urus. You see a horns upright, it's the zebu. You see the horns bent backward, it's the goat. You see the horns tilted sideways to the right a little bit, that's a buffalo. You see the short horned bull always turned down, and you see the twisted horns, it's the markhor, it's a mountain goat. Pakistan's national animal today. And of course, the rhinoceros, which is one-horned rhinoceros always. There is no two-horned rhinoceros depicted on Indus. And the elephant, which has horns from its mouth, and the gavial, which has a pot at the end of its snout. That's why it's called gharial. Gharial, literally, etymologically, it means the pot at the end of the mouth. Yeah. So these are the, and even people wear horns, and sometimes a tiger has horns, and then there are all kinds of people with horns. So this was considered, it's an early design choice that they make, and the characteristic of the horn and the type of horn is considered kind of fundamental building block of design communication. I'm using this merely to show a basic typology, the fundamental building blocks, which is they took a fancy to horn types and designed everything around it and made sure that each constituent element of the communication that they chose initially had a distinct expression by way of the horn, right? So it's merely to establish that. Yeah. So design. Now, there are three aspects to design, at least three, there may be more. One is the production design, and second is the visual design, and third is the data design, right? By production design, what I mean is choice of material, the supply chain, where do you get the steatite from, where do you get the copper from, where do you get the silver from, and so on. The implements used for designing, the tool bench necessary for carving these seals, and other factors is set it up for basically standardization, replication, propagation, mobility, and convenient usage. Now, this replication and propagation is really the difference between art and design. Art is a means of spontaneous expression. It is not necessarily meant, or at least intended initially, for mass communication and replication and propagation. Whereas in design, you always plan for replication and propagation. That's really the, and most of the Indus artworks have been studied art historically, but they have not been studied in design terms and in system terms properly, and that's really the whole point. Then of course the visual design, we already saw in the earlier slide how the horn types were necessary, fundamental, how they constituted identity, why they chose certain things that they chose. But also it means size, and of course yesterday Mayank said enough about how there was a marked preference for miniatures and how they like to deal with miniatures. Size, aspect ratio, why square, why not circular or round, why sometimes rectangular, why sometimes object shaped. So these aspect ratios and shapes, these are characteristics, and of course the aesthetic, these are characteristics of the visual design. Now the last of them is the data design. There is usage guidelines for the visual and the textual repertoire, that this must be familiar to artisans who craft these seals in various workshops spread across 1.5 square million kilometers, right, in different places. They should be able to read, they should be able to reproduce a reply if that is what is needed, or they should be able to make copies of it if that is what is needed for further propagation. So in many ways, some of them at least, in fact out of the large data set that we have, some of them are actually artworks meant to be carried to different places, right? Yesterday there was signboard painting. You know, when signboard painting used to be manual, these people used to build scaffolds, go up and draw, and they will always have a key artwork with them, which will be very small, and they will look at their artwork, and that's how they will execute it, and they won't know the language. In fact, none of them will read English, and all the ads that get put out will be in English. They will just draw the grid lines, and they will do the English lettering, and they will do the figures and so on. So many of these seals, not all, I can show some of them that were specifically used as artworks, but a lot of them are artworks that were used by artisans to copy and replicate a message locally, and therefore a person who is in charge of, let us say, an event or a congregation of people from different regions needs to have only one master artwork that was done in the original workshop and carries it around and it gets replicated. So these are Now, there is the production design aspect. I'm not going to cover much because archaeology has done all that job. It's really the work of archaeologists. The visual design and the data design is what I'm going to speak about. And when visual design and data design can be merged, okay, then you can call it a complete communication system, right? Then we can say that this is not arbitrarily ordered, but that there is intent, and we can get behind the data science. So what are the constituent members? We have a total number of 17 visual units, pictorial units. That's all, 17, including horned humans and all the animals. That is the complete pictorial repertoire of the Indus Valley civilization as far as their sigillograms are concerned. On pottery, you will find peacocks. On sculpture, you will find different elements, but as far as the sigillographic output is concerned, the 17 is the complete repertoire. As far as the sign repertoire is concerned, the sign list that we have according to Airavatham Mahadevan is 417. According to Parpola, it is 383. According to Brian Wells, it is 713. But we take the Mahadevans as a standard. So what is the relationship between the 17 and this 417? Is there a relationship at all? Has a relationship been suspected? I'll give a small background off script. When the copper tablets of Mohenjo-daro were discovered, the early archaeologists noted there may actually be a connection between the writing and the imagery on these copper tablets of Mohenjo-daro. That was that. It is still a suspicion. So my research question was that what is suspected of Mohenjo-daro copper tablets? Could it be true of the entire visual system? Okay. Is there a way to actually get to that question and try and answer that question? So that's really the motivation for the key question, the motivation for. Also, there was another lead that I got again from early excavation notes. Ernest Mackay, who had prior experience with excavating in Egypt before coming to India and starting work in Mohenjo-daro, notes down in his excavation notes that could it be that some of these animal symbols be provinces of regions, just like the nome animals were in Egypt. He raised this question and dismissed it immediately, saying, but then again, there are 400 unicorn seals in Mohenjo-daro, and then there are 500 unicorn seals in Harappa. It's actually the other way around. And a symbol cannot be equally enumerate if it's a symbol of one province. So he dismissed it, and thereafter nobody seems to have pursued that lead of whether that hypothesis may be true, but while his refutation may be wrong. Okay, so we will look at that. So if the visual design in a system can be demonstrated to follow a schema, then it becomes data design. That's really the foundational statement for my work. The data set, we need a data set to do this, right? So the data set is really the corpus of Indus seals and inscriptions, Parpola's work, which is the first volume came out in 1987. It's ongoing. The last volume is expected to come out overdue, but it's expected to come out later this year, which will include all the Dholavira. And it basically catalogs about 5,000 artifacts. The difference between Mahadevan catalog or Brian Wells catalog and Parpola's catalog is that Parpola's catalog is a photographic catalog, and it's done in sufficient magnification of these really tiny miniatures for anybody to easily see it. And not only that, Parpola and his team have not taken any chances. This is glyptic media. Glyptic media photography is very, very difficult. By glyptic media, what I mean is carved stuff. That is wood on wood engraving, right, or metal engraving with no color information. It's very, 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 very difficult to photograph. When you put side light on it, I mean, of course, Ahmed will definitely know it, because coins are also extremely difficult to photograph. You'll have to photograph it once with light on one side, which may look at engraving, make like embossing. And when you put light from the other side, it will look completely different. This will capture. So the entire corpus of Indus seals and inscriptions is a reliable body of photographic corpus, not only because of the magnification which it gives it, but it always gives you left side, right side, straight seal image, its mirror image, and where needed in 4 or even 5 different lighting setups, so that some detail that is not visible in one angle of lighting is always visible. So it's a very, there is a lot of other data outside this thing. For instance, the excavation report of Dolavira, I could take the data set of Dolavira, which is significant. It's got about 100 seal with images, but I won't go there because I don't know. These chiaroscuro effects can be completely devastating. I remember once we were documenting Brahmi inscriptions, stone inscriptions in Madurai, near Madurai, and our team was dead sure that we discovered a new Brahmi inscription. And next day we have organized for reporters to come to reveal the Brahmi inscription to them and stuff like that. And then before that, we just take an stampage and see it. It's written E.K. Veeramani, today's name. There is no Brahmi in it at all. There's only Abrahmi. Yeah. So these engraved glyptic media can be extremely challenging for eye perception. It can cause a lot of illusion. So we need absolutely reliable data. But luckily it's been forthcoming since 87. We are into the 5th volume. Yeah. So that's I take that. But the corpus of Indus seals and inscriptions also has pottery graffiti and other directly incised media. I filter it out because anything that is not sigillographic does not have required intent. It need not be designed. I can also scroll directly on pottery. I can take a slab of metal and I can write directly or draw directly. That material I filtered out. That is the first filter. I applied a second filter, which is visual really, because there are sigillograms or seals or even impressions of seals which have text only but no imagery. Right? And that's a significant. And after doing all that, from 5,000, I got to 2,129 objects, okay, which have an image side by side with text, out of which only 7 of them are pure image, no text at all. Right? So 2,122 objects are deliver a message by using both pictures and words, whereas most of all the research into the language and even the communication of Indus has been based primarily on the textual aspect of it, which means we have historically ignored a 40% data set. And out of these 2,129 objects, I get 2,488 pictorial units. As I showed you earlier in the samples, on one side you can have multiple images. An object can have multiple sides, and each side can have multiple images and so on. So if I unitize it, I get 2,488 visual units, and that is the basic data set that I work with. So whatever I speak today is not just true of that one example that I will be showing you, but it is true of all 2,488. Yeah. So while we will focus on typological validation, simultaneously there is statistical validation, and that needs to be understood, and those numbers bear them out. So what is the visual schema? The visual schema of Indus is very, very simple. There are seals where the 1, 2, 3, 4 or more than 4 major symbols can be present together. There are seals and impressions in which there is a major symbol by size and by relative size a minor symbol in front, right? And then there are other seal types where there is a major symbol, and instead of a symbol in front or a pictorial element in front, there is text in front. Yeah, these are really so I have named them. This is an HFT terminology. The H label is for herd, the F label is for herd of animals, the F label is for anything in front, the T label is for text in front. Yeah, so it's easy to remember. And it's really now it all boils down to proximity. Now those of you in the room familiar with the work on Indus by the mathematical community would have come across a lot of adjacency analysis, a lot of Markovian a way of approaching how to read the Indus script and so on. Now, with this, what I do is that what in text component they call adjacency, I call it proximity so as to avoid the confusion. See, words like co-occurrence, collocation, proximity, adjacency, they all mean the same thing. But it's useful to have different labels for different data sets. So in a text data set, we frequently use the term adjacency, and therefore to separate it from that, I use the term proximity. And the whole schema is nothing but a proximity schema. That means now the visual components or the imagery or the pictorial components of Indus can be looked at by mathematics and looked at other researchers as rigorously as they have historically looked at text, for which there was no opportunity because data was not organized like this, right? So this is the visual schema of H. So you have multiple major symbols herding together, many animals herding together, and this is an example of F type, where there is a major symbol, the elephant, and then there is a minor symbol in front, which is really a feeding trough or a manger. These are the terms by which they are usually called. I'll show you more examples of these as we go along. And then you see there is this major symbol, and here it's not a symbol, it's an Indus sign, it's text. Right? The difference between symbol and sign is always not clear to readers, it is not clear to even many researchers, but it has a history. From Marshall's time. Marshall used the word symbol or field symbol for all image units and signs for what we today take as letters or whatever. But they confuse this terminology by referring very often to the signs also as symbols. Many people do it, in many talks they do it. So you need to be able to separate the two and say, hey, by symbol that guy is actually meaning sign. Because it's very, very important to distinguish the two. So what I have done is I've lifted it up. I no longer use though symbol is a very, very important term, I no longer use the term symbol itself, I use the term pictorial. Lift it up a little bit so that the confusion can be avoided. So good, yeah. There is no text on top here. No, what I go for are three types of proximity, as I said. They are frontal proximity. That is anything that is in the line of sight of a living thing over there. I classify that. In this, it's in the line of sight, not above. Okay. And that analysis has been independently done. That cataloging has been done, that concordance has been done, and we've had in our hands more than 50 years. So I don't need to do that work all over again. But the connection from A, B to C, that is missing because nobody has really documented this. They've left it out. So that is what I do. I go from here to here to here, or sometimes, as the case may be, from here to here to here.
In the second one, the F, if you have the image at the front, which is could be viewed as a kind of a feeding trough, for example.
Yeah.
So in some sense, it forms part of a coherent image, the elephant and the troughs. Is that something that is seen in others or such examples where you have a middle and minor symbol? Do they form?
It's sort of like, exactly. That's the point I'm getting into. It's almost like it's as formula-like as Shiva and Nandi or Vishnu and Garuda. Are they standard pairs? Is there an intent behind the pair? That's really where we are going. We are headed in that direction. Okay. So this pairing has significance. It is of significance. We'll see that. Yeah. Now this is the top level, the HFT, and there are nested levels. So if we look at H, there are different types of H. This is H0, which is just a group. Here, when a major symbol faces its own mirror image, I label it as H1. When a major symbol faces its own mirror image with something in between, which may be a human, which may be a tree, which may be anything in between, then I classify it as, label it as H2. When in a group an animal or a human turns the other way, which is a deliberate act, I label it and classify it as H3. Then in a group, if an animal is, or a human or anybody is looking away, as is, are you able to see this? The elephant, all the other animals are looking at the figure in the center, the centrally seated figure. The elephant alone is looking out. Can you see that? It's looking away. It's almost like, I am walking out of this meeting. I don't want to be here types. It's like walking away. Similarly, you can see the goat here. It's facing away. It's turning away. The directionality is an extremely important thing that is expressed in and encoded universally and consistently on industrial impressions. So that we will see. And then finally, the final category is, in a group, is something conflicted? Is an animal conflicted? Is there aggression? So that is the H schema, which is 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. We'll move to the F schema, which is a little simpler. In the F schema, again, we have an F0 where an animal have just nothing but space in front. Okay. I don't want to say it's nothing, but I would rather add an F0 to it and label it as F0. When it has food in front, or a manger, or your question in front, it's labeled F1. When it has a container in front, the container is the most frequent visual or pictorial unit in Indus. It's not the unicorn. It outnumbers the unicorn by a little, by about 4 or 5. It's the most frequent, and it has an upper chamber and a lower chamber. They are connected through a rod, and the rod stands on the ground. So when something faces this container, that's labeled F2. When this is really a subset of F0, but it's also cataloged separately because it's a significant behavior. When something turns on its own, of course, in a group we have already seen it as H3 behavior. Here it's cataloged separately as F3 behavior. So you will get a finite set. In H you will get a finite set. In F you will get a finite set. And we'll next see text proximities, right? So this was initially text in front, but if you see here, I don't know, it's clear enough. The text is not in front of the animal. It's on the body. It wears the sign. It's a body sign. Okay, it's on its neck. Right? Able to see it, or should I exit and magnify it? It's okay? Okay. So that is labeled T0, and anything in front is labeled T1. Yeah. So in the HFT schema, you have all these types of within that. We won't have time to go into all of them, but we will try and cover some significant aspects of seal impressions in the H schema today. Yeah. Yes, there is. That's right. So so a T0 essentially can be a subset of F2. So this information can very often be a subset. For here instance, here the T0 is a subset of F0, right? So why are those subsets occurring? Do those overlaps mean anything? So these are data questions. These are not questions raised by me. These are not hypothetical questions. So the questions are relevant even if the answers are wrong. Yeah. So there are 2,488 unit pictorials that answer to this visual schema, which is determined by proximity, right? Proximity as a concept, I think, especially in science, is very powerful, whether it is language or genetics or astrophysics or whatever. Most of them are analyzed through information around something, point X, point Y, and their interrelationship, and so on. Yeah. Now, this is the total typological plot of this, and when you plot it, you can get a binary expression for each of the 17 symbols So you can take the binary and feed it into a machine, use it for programming. You can do anything with it now. Now you don't need the image data set. You don't need the photograph. You need nothing. In fact, I often used to think, can I actually make this entire presentation without a single image? Is it possible? Actually, it is possible. It's just that understanding will be a little bit difficult. People have to get used to it in the beginning. But after about 3-4 times, you will no longer need the images. This kind of clear information will do. This is typological, and then this is a statistical abstract of all of that. You by the same classification, all this information is there. It's too much to go into, but we will concentrate on a few aspects, which will get us to the semantic, right? We'll take this particular tablet. I resist my temptation to explain it, and I would rather put forth some yes or no questions, and based on the answer, we will proceed and decode what this tablet may be collectively here by all of us. Now, to read this tablet, where does one think I should begin? It has no text, of course, it has only pictures. So where do I begin? Center? Center? Yes? No? The top, you say top? Okay. You say center. We'll keep that. Okay. Let's say we'll come to the top part. If I begin with center, where do I go next? So okay, so head and tail, right? Somebody said right.
Left top.
Left top.
Yes.
Okay. And somebody also said right.
Right from in the middle center.
This one? Okay, so you see how problematic it is basically. You get a plurality of views. We don't know where to begin, right? So even today, there is no standard reading order. At least for the writing, we know that we should go from right to left, right? But when it comes to the visual information, the pictorial information, even today, there is no standard information about where to begin to read an Indus tablet. Okay, and what I have attempted to do is to actually clean it up and establish a reading order first. And I tend to begin with the center, okay, and therefore I will overrule the other decisions made. I have reasons for it. I'm not overruling it just like that. But if I begin with the center, where do I go next? To the bottom, right or left? Left. And then I go clockwise to finish, right? Okay, so that's roughly the order that I take. Is this order valid? Now, for that we need other tablets, okay, and see whether it is presented in the same order, whether we can begin the same way and end the same way. If you look at it, this is a list, right? And all of us are familiar with the concept of an ordered list, where there is an implicit 1, 2, 3, 4 numbering, even if the numbers are not indicated, right? So there aren't too many tablets with herds of animals, but wherever they are, it always begins with the elephant and ends with the tiger, and the tiger that we end with, it always turns to look back at the rest of the group. Okay, that leaves out, that is still problematic. We have to come back and say, then why did you not start with the elephant? Why did you start with the gharial, right? First of all, many people will not agree that it's gharial. If I ask what is the identity of the central figure, people will say it's a scorpion. So that is when we need a little bit of external evidence from other. Scorpion is not represented otherwise in the Indus Valley civilization except in an early Mehrgar bone seal. That is the only instance, whereas Gavial is kind of a central. I use the term Gavial rather than Gharial, because it's just easier on the tongue. and it's also a shorter form of Gavialis gangeticus.
Scorpion would have more legs.
Sorry?
Scorpion would have more legs.
Oh, no, but you will be surprised how many people argue. That is in an open visual. How many people argue for scorpion? Yeah, yeah. So this, there is no doubt, it's an elephant. Okay. This, there is no doubt, there is a rhinoceros. We'll secure the identities. This, there is no doubt, is a bison, and this, there is no doubt, is a bison that's facing, and their horns are interlocked, and that is what produces the illusion for this to be perceived as a scorpion. Right? They all conjoin at the center. There are many versions around this. Archaeologists are not very sure about the identity of this particular figure. Some people say it's a monkey, some people say it's a human, some people say we don't know. But as I said, I have not physically examined these images. I will not take the risk of therefore imposing my opinion on what the identity of this may be. So this particular one we will skip and read the rest. And the last one, of course, there is no doubt at all that it is a tiger. Now there is something.
If you look at the elephant
Yeah.
on the left,
Yeah.
and you're assuming that the trunk of the elephant is merged with the.
That's right. Yeah.
But if you just take that portion as the tail of Gerial,
Yeah.
that's exactly same as the one on the right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we can't say it's a tiger for sure.
Of course, you can say it's tiger, sure. Look at the photographic image. So you can't go by one. That's not saying you need. Look at the photographic image. I'll show you plenty of other examples as well.
They didn't have dogs, did they?
Hmm?
They didn't have.
No doubts, no doubts. In fact, the turning tiger is the most recurrent visual element, a single most recurrent visual element of the Palestinian.
How about the stripes?
The slide, see, okay, no, you're asking pertinent questions, let me try and answer. This is actually a copper tablet. On a seal, the details will preserve very well. On a copper tablet that is prone to aging and crumbling otherwise, fine details like stripes and stuff like that will not survive. But it is very significant that this copper tablet has another copy. Two copies were recovered, and it also has 2 clay stampings, clay copies. So we are looking at 4 master artworks here, okay, not just one. 4 different pieces. Four different pieces, found from different layers, but all of them found in Mohenjo-daro. So every time we have the strength of numbers to verify what we are talking about. So there are 4 pieces here. So when we look outside this tablet, the striping and all the other details will become there. Now,
Clay molds intact until now.
sorry,
Clay molds.
it's still there.
Great.
So if you go back, now there are 2 very peculiar things happening on this tablet. Why is the tiger turning? Why are the 2 bisons facing each other? Can we answer this question one at a time? Rather than the why, I'll make the question a little bit easier. What does the turning of the tiger say in the simplest terms to anybody who looks at it? If I turn this way, what does it say?
Disinterest.
Disinterested is one way to put it, yeah. But in a group, like I don't know how many, I'm sorry to give you this example, but it's okay, let it be. If you go to a Navagraha installation, in the Navagraha installation, Rahu and Ketu will always be facing the opposite direction. It's a very poor example I chose because I don't want people to jump on and say, oh, Navagrahas come from Indus Valley Civilization. No, that's not the idea. The idea is direction is a statement that they constantly make. Okay, when the tiger turns, it indicates direction. Yeah, constantly they make a directional statement in everything that they put out as a message. The same thing goes for this, they face each other. Okay, they are mirror images. So there are two directional statements made in this group, and go extrapolating from that directional information, we can say that there is a center, and then there are things on either side of it, and then we can even go on to say this is the middle, this is the east, this is the west, this is the north, this is south, right?
How are you associating geographic?
Wait, exactly. I'm going to ask you the most difficult question. Can direction be reckoned in the absence of position, and vice versa? Is it possible in human cognition?
I don't follow the case.
Can you reckon direction in the absence of position, or can you reckon position in the absence of direction? They are semantic twins, okay, that produce a human cognition limit. We can, that is, we can never read a map without that one arrow. Okay, we can never read the arrow, and it will mean nothing in the absence of all the positions that are marked on a map.
You can sort of map out into, if you see the real, like the landmarks, you can sort of map out the,
Absolutely.
without the direction and arrow.
But when you begin,
Say, I have two landmarks. I have you try to align them and
see, the cartography is one of the oldest inventions of humankind. Cartography methods go back 25,000 years, 20,000 years before Indus Valley Civilization. And in cartography methods from ancient times to now, some kind of direction indicator will always be there. Distance indicator will not be there because there is no concrete way of measuring distance at that time. Okay, but there is always the direction will be expressed topocentrically or personal direction, relative direction as left, right, or it may be cardinal directions, north, south, and so on. But in some way, direction will be expressed. So, when you have two indicators, actually 1, 2, 3 indicators of direction, and then there is a center and there is an organization around it, is it possible to read each animal as anything other than a position in a map? Is there a logical possibility at all?
Are you saying this is a map of a landscape where you can find these animals?
It's a map of the Indus Valley Civilization itself, is what I'm saying. It is the map of the 1.5 million square kilometers of Indus, of its regions. I will.
But what is the direction? What is the orientation? Because there's no.
Beautiful. I'll get to the orientation now.
Also, you have no way of drawing a tiger, say, or a bison without having a direction.
Absolutely. So they have not given the direction, right? See, in any or in any ancient archaeological record, the main task is, as a reader, when we successfully understand it, we need to interpolate some information into it. That is, for instance, the dot will not be written. I have to submit the dot as a reader. Okay. The conjunct consonant will not be conjuncted. I have to conjunct it as a reader because I know conjunctor. So in this case, we will have to supply the arrow. Okay, and we can now see how we can supply the arrow. Sure. I will, since you asked this question, I will not through this and go straight to this, and we'll go back there. So if the Nile is the river Indus itself, it is the habitat imagery, and it always holds a fish in its snout, right? To the right of it is your, this is the Gavil, here is, the map is upside down because they have drawn it south side up. The orientation that you question that you asked, it gets answered. The map, the Indus map, original map is conceived with the south side up, not with the north side up. And that is the only way it justifies, because that is the only way the tiger that turns can then be put at the west and also be understood as the frontier animal, and the expression of why the animal turns is because it's the frontier. It's a cul-de-sac, there is no further to go, and that's one of the main reasons why it turns back Okay, so Indus is not just self-aware of itself; it is aware of Elam and Mesopotamia and the Oxus civilizations and all the neighborhoods, and they tell you this is where, this is how. For instance, this is a visual map. If you take an Ashokan map, which is purely verbal, actually the first one that he will talk about is not Pataliputra or Magadha. The first region that he always refers to is Gandhara, because that's his border region. He begins from because the kings or anybody who likes to declare territory likes to say from east to west and everything in between. They don't start in the middle, right? That's how the statement is framed when you express it verbally. And this is one statement like that. An animal featured on the series of tablets, therefore, is a symbol of a sovereign. Each is a sovereign entity. One is Punjab, the other is Baluchistan, the tiger. Then the two bison, the twin bisons on the southeastern side is your Sindh and Kutch, and on the southwestern side across the sea are Magan and Dilmun. That is modern day Muscat, Oman and Bahrain. So where Indus had a strong presence, and there is clear archaeological evidence that we have that those people issued their own byssal seals, while the southeastern people issued their own bison seals. So ultimately these are communication that exchanges between regions, and once we understand these as regions, then we can understand the entire corpus of Indus seals as people writing to each other, and then begin to see a from address and a to address, and when is something addressed to somebody else, and we can also see group addressing, joint communication. This tablet was not just created by one entity in the Indus Union. It is arrived at by consensus. In fact, today you give a challenge to a designer and see if a designer can come up with a better version than this, better pictorially aesthetic and more logical version of this in design terms. It will be very, 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 very difficult to do. Tomorrow, let's say EU was created within our lifetime memory, right? So when 27 countries joined together, they needed to create an identity for the coming together of the European Union. What did they do? They created an identity that featured all the 27 stars. Okay, so they created a flag. Now that kept growing. They periodically revised it. Okay, so the design of a country and a region and its emblem. What did modern India do? Modern India went straight to Ashoka period and borrowed Ashokan symbols and took them. Again, this is a good point to again dwell on the difference between a symbol and a picture. A symbol, when we look at Ashoka's 3 lions, we never perceive a lion. We always perceive India. Okay. We never even call them lions. Of course, British media loves to call their football team lions and lionesses and so on and so forth, because they've got 3 stacked lions as their emblem. But we rarely, so there is something about a symbol which is, while it denotes something, a symbol always undenotes itself. It is always telling you, hey, the me you see is not me, it is that. So that undenotion, okay, people have written about what it denotes, what it connotes, and how it's a combination of how a symbol is a combination of what it denotes and connotes. But nobody has really paid attention to the fact that a symbol actually minuses out a meaning. The first meaning, the most obvious meaning, the lion. I am not a tiger here. I am not an elephant here. I am not a gavial here. I am the river here. I am this province here. I am that province here. I am the western province, the eastern province, the northern province, and the southern province, for lack of any other word. Because we still don't know it in phonetic terms. We now beginning to understand it in semantic terms, right? So that is communicated by a symbol, and how an arbitrary value is assigned to it is 10,000-year-old human style in communication. Yeah.
So what I say is, each animal represents a region.
Yes.
And why that particular animal?
Why that particular? That's a very good. See, the thing is, why that particular animal is I can say, for instance, the gavial. The habitat is river. right? The gavial is, unlike crocodiles, the gavial is non-threatening to humans. It is actually a fish-eating species. It only eats fish. So that is taken as a formative symbol. That is the first alphabet of the pictorial language of Indus. And thereafter, everything is what falls in either direction of it.
But then that also raises the question as to what the unicorn does.
See, now we are essentially concentrating on pictorial units that are featured on this tablet, which more or less turns out to be the master tablet for us. Then in the second part, and there are 6 of them, and there are 11 of them not featured here. Okay, what is their role? Can we understand that also in terms of this tablet? Okay, in which case this tablet can truly be called a master tablet, and the key to unlocking the pictorial semantic of Indus is something that we will see subsequently. Yeah.
So, in the tablet,
Yeah.
we still didn't talk about that one particular character on the right side.
Yeah, that's a monkey or whatever.
Yeah, but
I'm not sure about the identity of it, but if I want to speculate on the identity and take it as a monkey,
but like you said that these symbols are kind of mapped to regions or like in the Indus civilization. Can't we from that particular thing
yeah.
try
So,
to
go but I don't want to be hypothetical, so therefore I have to know. But if you insist, we can find a logical thread of meaning to it. The reason the monkey stands there is it's no man's land. It's a gorge. That is, actually there is no direct connectivity between this tiger country and this bison country. You will have to go to the river and go up the mountain. Okay, so it's a river gorge, it's a split, it's a monkey, it's a high altitude. Okay, it's a no man's land. So you can understand it that way, but until we are secure about its identity, this meaning cannot be supplied. It can be spoken about, of course, but it can't be written down.
Is this all hypothetical?
No, nothing else is hypothetical. Everything else is a simple deductive logic from the idea, from the understanding that position and direction cannot be semantically separated from each other. They are semantic twins. It beats, if you try to separate it, okay, then you are trying to beat the limit of human cognition, which we are not capable of unless we lose it.
why is the monkey symbol still a hypothesis? It kind of makes sense.
As I said, I have not physically examined these objects. You need to, and as it turns out, this tablet is among the most neglected. It's never discussed by anybody other than by the very early extroverts, because it does not have any writing in it. And who cares about it if it does no writing in it? So nobody has actually written consistent commentaries about it either. So I can't get enough details to go by from reliable sources who may have examined it physically and say, hey, this is what it is. Okay. See, there is a tactile component. For example, when we go and read Brahmi, apart from looking at visually on the rock face, we'll close our eyes and read this Braille. It's important to read it by touch as well, especially when they're so small. Otherwise, we are leaping. That's why when you look at an internet picture and say this is this of that, no. Unless somebody has gone through all that stuff, resemblances can be very, 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 very misleading. Yeah.
What does the human symbolize? The mahout in front of the elephant.
The human stick figures.
Yeah.
The human stick figures are also an aspect of the script. Right? It does not occur with the elephant alone, it also occurs with the tiger. And you will see this repetition in many places. And it is a bridge sign between the pictorial and the textual. And we will be able to see it in the subsequent tablets that we see. It's deliberate, it's a good catch, and nice to be asked about it. But that's a kind of that's what I'm saying. These frontal signs are all bridge signs. We won't have time today to go into the T aspect, that is the textual aspect of the schema. We will barely get. We are already over time. We'll barely get to this one C. I know, and there are so many of the H schemas to discuss, but we can always take this conversation outside. So tell me when I should call time.
Yeah, maybe just a few minutes. Yeah.
Just go back and come right back up to this and stop there. Okay. Okay, now this is just a list of the elements that it actually recalls. This tablet recalls the gavial, it recalls the elephant, and by extension the horned elephant. It recalls the rhinoceros, of course. It recalls bison in its various avatars, that is the twin mirrored facing bison, the buffalo, and the standard bison as well. It recalls the tiger, and by extension the turning tiger, or the tiger triskelion, which happens as in 3 here, right, and the natural tiger and the horned tiger. So you look at it as a recall unit, then you know that there are about 300 tablets that actually are talking about this in some way, or this tablet in turn is talking about 300 other tablets in some way. Yeah. So this unlike the unitary pictures, one of the reasons this tablet has a lot of information density. It gives us a lot of relative information, not standalone information, but relative information, so we can learn one from the other. For instance, if I see a picture of you separately, I am unlikely to understand much about you, but if I see you in a group shot and then also understand who your neighbor is, then at least in the absence of any other knowledge, okay, these two people are probably friends. Okay, it's that kind of how we go through the investigative process, right? It also has information distance. The recall is tremendous. You see, there are 30 rhinoceros seal impressions that recall this. There are 50 elephant seal impressions that recall this. There are 39 gavial seal impressions that recall this. There are 102 bison seals that recall this, and there are 40 tiger seals, and so on. So if you take it's probably the loudest and the most, and it does not have a single word, the most eloquent piece of communication ever produced by Indus. But at the same time, I will not be able to go into this, though questions were asked. What about the unicorn? What about the zebu? What about the others that are not featured here? So we will, and of course the humans. But you look at, I will just close it with some. This is a beautiful design challenge. Now take that square tablet and plot it on a horizontal artwork. Okay, how do I do that? Take the gavial and put it on top, right? And you see in the list the elephant is first, the turning tiger is last, right? In between you have the rhinoceros, and then you have a leopard. Okay, so this is what I mean by saying it's a consistent order. The elephant is first, the turning tiger is last. It repeats everywhere you see in that. So that is how I derive the logic and take it back to that and saying I should begin left bottom and go clockwise after it. The gavial is at the top. It is always, the gavial enjoys one particular thing, that it has the maximum neighborhood information. Okay, while an elephant is a neighbor only of gavial and the rhinoceros. Okay, so 2 neighbors. The gavial will always have 6 neighbors, maximum of 6 neighbors. So in terms of, therefore it's a central figure. It is around which that everything was imagined, and around which the entire communication was leveraged, and entire communication was kick-started with that formative symbol, is something that we can easily understand. Now, this particular seal, the so-called Pashupati seal, is not entirely different from the master tablet that we've been seeing so far, except in the middle, instead of a gavial, you have a seated human. But this is generally called as Pashupati. But if an animal is a province, if an animal is a region, then this cannot be Pashupati, this has to be Deshadipati, right? The one who sees with 4 heads in 8 directions. That is what we actually see here. So that is a kind of a correction. First of all, people will argue, no, it has only 3 heads, it does not have 4. Very clear, there are 4 animals all around, and in fact one of them, to indicate the head that we cannot see, is also looking out. Now we know the elephant is not walking out of the meeting, but elephant is the back head of the seated figure with 4 heads. Right? I don't know if you all have experienced this joke in school, draw an elephant, I draw a wall. So where the hell is the elephant? Behind the wall. But so these are graphic design tricks. That people are taught early in their artistic life. So they actually indicate through an elephant that faces away that, and the two goats are added. So now what we can understand is that out of the 17 pictorial units that Indus has, 6 of them are securely indicators of a province or a region. In other words, we can understand them as geonyms. What are the remaining 11 is a topic for a different day. Thank you.